Dan, the distracted dinosaur. Dan sat avidly watching the TV screen. His eyes were fixed as he pressed all the buttons on his game controller. "Yay! Level 5! He screamed with excitement as his dad came into the room. Dan kept his eyes fully fixed on the screen. The colours all jumped around and he squealed with joy. "This game is epic!" he screamed with excitement. Dad was holding their brand new puppy in his arms and put him carefully inside his crate on his comfy bed. "Dan, don't forget to take Eddie for a wee break in a little while. I have an important call to make. And if we don't remember, Eddie will tear up another bed." "Yes!" Dan said as his dad left the room. But Dan wasn't replying to his dad. He had his mind so distracted. He hadn't even heard his dad come into the room. He hadn't seen Eddie in his cage. Dan was so distracted. A little while later, Dan was at the most interesting level on his new game. Eddie began to shuffle around in his cage, but Dan was so distracted he hadn't heard Eddie shuffle. The mighty monkey had conquered the evil knights and was swinging through the jungle trees to defeat the king knight when Eddie began to whimper and scratch at the cage. But Dan was so distracted, he didn't hear Eddie whimper and scratch. A little later, Eddie began to bark, but the game was so loud, and Dan's excited shouting was so loud, he didn't hear Eddie bark. Dan was so distracted, he hadn't heard the barking. It wasn't very long before Dan's dad came back into the room to a very upset little Eddie, a destroyed puppy bed, and a big puddle. And a very distracted Dan, who was still playing on his mighty monkey game. Dan was so distracted. "Oh dear," Dad said, as he placed Eddie outside and turned off the game. "It seems as though we have had a visit from Distractosaurus. He's a very, very clever dinosaur that likes to get you so involved with doing something that you forget all the things and the people around you. And sometimes it can lead to real trouble, like a torn puppy bed and a big, ugly puddle." Dan looked around, and for the first time, he saw all that had gone on. The Distractosaurus is clever. He makes it hard to hear others' thoughts and feelings, and makes us think just about what we want to do, and only that. Dan had learnt a really good thing that morning. Amidst the puddle and the ripped bed, he had been so distracted with his game, he hadn't noticed anything going on around him, and it had led to a bit of a muddle. So with a cloth in one hand and a big puddle, Dan decided never to let Distractosaurus make any more trouble. Have you ever been so distracted that you've forgotten to do something that you've been asked to do? Next time Mum or Dad asks you to do something, make sure you keep your mind fixed on doing what has been asked and keep that naughty dinosaur away.
Thank you for listening to this audio theatre presentation. Did you know that audio theatre is a listener-supported platform? That's right, because of the kindness of other people, you were able to listen to this story today. Will you help someone else hear it too? By donating at our website at www.mannatheatrecompany.uk/audio theatre. Thank you and see you next time.